Okay? So last class we have seen about the biblical languages, and we saw the three languages: Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. And we said about Hebrew, most of the parts of the Old Testament were covered by the language Hebrew. Therefore, Hebrew dominates the Old Testament. So, and we said Hebrew is the lingua franca of Israel. And also we have seen that Hebrew belongs to a Semitic family. And also we said only the consonants contain the meaning in the Hebrew language. And different points we have seen. And the second language, Aramaic. When we said about the language Aramaic, we have said it is the language of Armenians. And it also is of Semitic family. And it was the basis for different languages which have adopted the alphabets such as Hebrew, Syriac, and so on. And here we said, since the people were in the exile, they adapted a bit of language of Aramaic. When they returned back to their homeland, these people started talking all in their daily living the Aramaic. Therefore, it became the part of their living. And when we said about Greek, we have spoken, it is a dominating language in the 2nd and 3rd centuries with the advent of Alexander the Great. And we said it is a language belongs to Indo-European languages, and which became a basis for different languages in that Indo-European languages. And we also said most of the parts, such as the total of the New Testament, were written in Greek, and some parts of Old Testaments were written in Greek. Therefore, it was a language which played a greater role in 2nd and 3rd centuries, as we have seen in the previous classes even. Having said just a glimpse of this, what we have seen about the languages, and we concluded telling about, though these three languages are oldest languages, but they are not dead languages. Why they are not dead languages? Because they are spoken in different forms at present age in different areas: Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek. And we have seen which are the places which these languages were spoken about. And having said about the biblical languages, we have seen about in the chapter 4 the writing style. In the writing style, we have seen the writing was conditioned because of the available materials. And writing was something costly affair, because papyrus and parchments were not so much common in those days. And afterwards we have said, since it is costly, the scribes were very careful in using the material, the spaces between the paragraphs, words, and columns, and so on. Therefore, after having said some bit of introduction to the writing style, we said about what are the writing materials. First one, rock inscriptions, writing on the rock, and we have spoken about example Shalom Tunnel, and we spoke about Ostraka. Ostraka is writing on pots. We have spoken here about Lakesh. And thirdly, we have seen the clay materials. Here we said about there are these clay materials preserved in Ashurbanipal library in Nineveh. And fourthly, we said about papyrus. Papyrus. Papyrus is a reed which grows from beside the river Nile, and it was so fragile to handle, and it was difficult, and these were hammered together, and all these things we have seen. And at the end we have concluded telling about the papyrus. When the king of Egypt has stopped sending these papyrus to the East Asia, then there arose a need to alter for the material for writing. Therefore they have altered the writing material as with parchments. Parchments means skin of an animal. So the skin of animal of a sheep or goat, and which were treated very carefully to become whitish or creamish to write it. And we said it is durable and flexible than papyrus. Therefore, we also spoken about how the advantages are existing because of the parchments. So we said it is durable, it is flexible, and we can write on both sides, whereas on the papyrus only one side. And the cost is made down since we can write on both sides. Having said this, we have spoken about scribes and their writing rules, and we have spoken about different ways how they have to write. And after seeing how the writing rules were there for the scribes, we said about the errors. The errors, intentional and unintentional. Intentional and unintentional errors. And here we have spoken about because of the eyesight, faculty of eyesight, faculty of hearing, and here we have spoken about alteration and so on. So this is a revision of the previous classes. Now we step into the new section, new chapter, chapter 5, the versions of the Bible. The versions of the Bible. In this chapter, we will be dealing about, firstly, what is version? Here we will be looking about manuscript, version, edition, how they are related, and variant. And secondly, we will be focusing upon the versions of Old Testament. Versions of Old Testament. A, Greek version. B, Syriac version. C, Aramaic version. D, Latin version. And thirdly, we will be looking into the versions of New Testament. Firstly, Latin versions. In these Latin versions, we will be focusing upon Old Latin, Vulgate, Neo-Vulgate. Syriac versions. And this will be covering up Diatessaron. Old Syriac. Then Peshitta. Thirdly, we will be looking into the version, Coptic version. Thereafter, we will be looking into the other versions. Such as Georgian, Ethiopian, Arabic, Persian, Sogdian, Sogdia, Gothic, Old Church, Slavic, Slavonic, Anglo-Saxon, then after having finished these two versions of Old Testament and versions of New Testament, we will also focus upon English versions. So the fourth point will be of English versions. Some of the English versions. Write it because I am writing slowly, no, that's why. Because if you cover it, it will be going on there. Okay. Anyway, we'll come in the matters. So what is version? Before knowing the version, we should know about the manuscripts. The original books of the Old Testament of Hebrew and Greek New Testament books are not with us. The originals are not with us. What we have only are the copies of the originals. Those copies are called manuscripts. So, copies of originals are called manuscripts. From these copies of the originals, the translations are made into the various ancient Near East languages. From these copies of the originals, the translations were made into the various languages of the Near East. The translations are called versions. Copies of the originals are called manuscripts. Translations of the copies available are called versions. And from these translations, through the scientific textual criticism, that means knowing better about the text, applying the science, as we are applying the science for different things, so too in the biblical study, to know the authentic text, they apply the textual criticism, that is called. So from these translations, through applying the science of textual criticism, we arrive at different editions. So copies of the originals are manuscripts. From copies we have the translations, they are called versions. From translations we have editions. So through textual criticism. Here translations, as we have seen now, different translations: Greek translation, Syriac, Aramaic, and Latin, and so on. The textual, the editions, for example, editions. We have the Bible's different editions. We have RSV, NRSV, New Jerusalem Bible, different editions. These are. And we should also know about the variant. What do you mean by variant? A group of words which appear in different manuscripts with difference. Group of words in different manuscripts with difference. With difference is called variant. So it is very clear to know. For example, the Lord said, I am the light of the world. If it is there in NRSV, if the same words are written in different way in RSV, in New Jerusalem Bible, in different versions, if it is with different words, okay, group of words appear in different manuscripts, they are called variants. Therefore, the scholars, what they do for the authentic text, they base on different manuscripts and they focus upon which is the original, which has its authenticity. Having seen what is the version, is a translation of the copies. Now we see the translations, the versions of Old Testament. Greek translation, Septuagint. The Greek-speaking people in Palestine and outside of Palestine, they had the Judaism. Okay? There were people who were speaking Greek in Palestine and also outside of Palestine. Usually the people were of the Jews speaking Hebrew in Palestine. Therefore, the Septuagint, when the people were outside of Palestine, they need a text to understand the scripture in a better way. Because the people, those who are in exile outside of Palestine, they do not know about Hebrew. Because, for example, if people are migrated to a different place, when their children were born, they don't know of Hebrew. So they need the translation in their own language, what they know. Therefore, there was a need for the translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek for the people of diaspora. So the first point is the people are in need of the translation. In the post-exilic period, they are in need of translation of the Bible into Greek. The people who are in diaspora. Diaspora means diaspora. Dia means through or spread through. Hebrew people spread through. Hebrew people spread through. Therefore, they are in different place. They are out of Palestine. Diaspora. When they were in diaspora, some customs and systems, culture of the Greek, they adopted it. That became their lifestyle. But outside of diaspora, the people wanted to have their identity. In Jerusalem, third point, identity. In Jerusalem, temple was their identity. But in diaspora, the people, those who were outside of Palestine, they wanted to have identity. They're called people of book. Temple, book. They wanted to have the identity. That's why they're called people of book. Those who are there in diaspora. And the Judaism developed in two places. Judaism developed in two places. That is Palestine Judaism and Hellenistic Judaism. Palestine Judaism is developed in Palestine by the people who are living in Palestine, the Hebrews. And Hellenistic Judaism is developed this diaspora people who are out of Palestine. In the post-exilic period, when the people who are living in different areas out of Palestine, they developed Hellenistic Judaism. They kept up their rituals. They kept up their faith even outside of the Palestine. Therefore, what happens when they are in diaspora or out of Palestine? Two things happens. First thing, there will be minor culture and major culture, or mega culture, micro. So there is a small and big group. When these two cultures, minor culture and major culture exist, usually what happens? One will be absorbed into the other. One will be absorbed into the other. Otherwise, the other will resist by itself. The minor will absorb immediately to the major. That is natural. A minor group will join with the major group. Otherwise, the minor group by itself resists itself. So here, the people of Israel, those who are in diaspora, they didn't mingle, or they didn't absorb into the major culture, which is the Greek in the diaspora. They wanted to resist by themselves. They want to have their own scriptures. They want to follow their faith. They wanted to keep up their faith. Therefore, they wanted to have the text translated into the Greek. Therefore, my brothers, in these two cultures, for example, Tyre and Sidon,
in between that Judaism, Palestine and Hellenistic, which is a bigger group?
this is the bigger. When I mean the Jews in Palestine are the bigger group, but whereas diaspora, they were in different people. They are like they were taken. Some were taken, and some wanted to live there. Even they were given freedom, they don't want to come back. They wanted to be there because they are accustomed. Since they were accustomed to the culture systems there, they are comfortable there. Therefore, they wanted to live. They wanted to enjoy the system which is adapted by them for the years. Since they were accustomed there, they don't want, though they were given freedom to go back, they didn't come, they enjoyed. Therefore, they resisted there. This is the way of introduction. And when they were in need of the book was translated into Greek, that is called Septuagint. Septuagint is the translation of the Hebrew text into the Greek. Septuagint is from the Latin word Septuaginta. Septuaginta means 70. Means 70. The Septuaginta is abbreviated in Roman numerals. It is abbreviated in Roman numerals as 70. It is estimated that first 5 books, Pentateuch, translation was taken place in 3rd century. It is estimated that the first 5 books were taken translation in 3rd century BC and remaining in 2nd century BC. The next point in the Septuaginta is the letter of Aristeas. The letter of Aristeas is a historian. Records. Bible was translated from Hebrew to Greek on the orders of King Ptolemy Philadelphus. Philadelphus. So he said, the Aristeas says that it is the order of king to translate the Hebrew Bible into Greek. So the letter, what the letter of Aristeas speaks. What is the letter? Background and content. This Aristeas was a court officer of Ptolemy. He was a court officer in Ptolemy, 283 to 247. The letter was addressed to his brother Philocrates. The letter was addressed to his brother Philocrates. Aristeas demands liberation of Israel or liberation of Jews. And he speaks, there is a problem or there is something difficult to understand the Bible, to understand the scripture, Jewish text. Therefore, he speaks, the librarian Demetrius, Demetrius of Alexandria, requested the high priest Eleazar to send some scholars, some wise people, qualified men for translation. Therefore, this Eleazar, the high priest, with the request of Demetrius, the librarian of Alexandria, has sent scholars. And as he sent the scholars, this Demetrius invited them in felicitating, and they were given such a respect when they were welcome. And he sent 70 scholars, 70 qualified people. And this letter says the translation took place in the island of Pharos. The island of Pharos. The letter speaks in 72 days. And it is said 70 days by 70 people, and also the tradition says 72. And the letter says the ideas of Jewish religion and philosophy culture referred in the letter. The ideals of Jewish religion, culture are referred in this letter. And Septuagint contains Hebraism. Concept of Hebrew phrases and vocabulary. Septuagint contains Hebraism. And the language applied is the Koine Greek. Koine means common language. It's not a language used by the high people or scholars. It's a common language, what we speak, local language, such as. Therefore, language applied was Koine Greek. Means common language or local language. This is something about the letter of Aristeas. So the Greek translated Septuagint is not only used by the Greek-speaking Jews but also widely used by Christians in that period. It was used by Jews and Christians of that period. However, when the controversy came between these two groups, Jews and Christians, to standardize the Hebrew text, because the Jews wanted to have the standard text of the Hebrew. Therefore, these two groups were using the Septuagint in their reading. When these two groups have the controversy about standardizing the text, there are other texts available at the time. Therefore, the Jews have used the other text to fix the number of the text, and the scholars assembled at Jamnia near Joppa. Scholars have assembled at Jamnia near Joppa and fixed the text available to them for the Jews. And the preservation of the Septuagint belongs to the Christian church. The preservation of Septuagint credited to the Christian church, because already the Jews have accepted the other standard text when there was a controversy between these two. Therefore, from 4th and 5th centuries, the translations of the Septuagint were available in great codexes, namely Sinaiticus, Vaticanus, Alexander. So from 4th and 5th centuries, translations were available of Septuagint. So from Septuagint, the translations were taken. And today, why we should know about the Septuagint? All these points we have seen, this is Septuagint, the Greek translation, and what is the background, and so on. Today, why should you and me know about the Septuagint? The importance of Septuagint. Study of Septuagint for us. Study of Septuagint. Why it is so important? Firstly, it was the first translation made of Hebrew Old Testament into Greek. It was the first translation. Therefore, we should know, since it is the first translation. And it was the Bible used by the New Testament writers. And the Old Testament citations in the New Testament are from Septuagint. Firstly, it is the first translation from Hebrew to Greek. Secondly, New Testament writers made use of it. And the Old Testament citations in the New Testaments are from Septuagint. And thirdly, this was the Bible used by our church fathers. Used by church fathers. Therefore, it is important for us to know about the Septuagint. Syriac translation, Syriac version, Peshitta. The first thing, Syriac version is called Peshitta. Called Peshitta. The second point, It is a reworking of the World Syriac translations. It is a reworking. Peshitta is the reworking of World Syriac translations. Thirdly, the word Peshitta is derives from Mapakta. Mapakta psta means simple or plain version. The Syriac version is called Peshitta. It is a reworking of Old Syriac translations. The word Peshitta is coming from Mapakta pista, simple or plain. Fourthly, the Syriac language is closely related to the Hebrew language. Syriac is closely related to the Hebrew language and is very important among the ancient versions of Old Testament. It is very important among the ancient versions of Old Testament. This Syriac version, Peshitta, it is a standard version of the Bible for the Syriac church. It is a standard version of Bible for the churches in Syriac tradition. Sixth point is the translation of Old Testament into Syriac could have undertaken probably in the 1st and 2nd centuries. First and second centuries. Second centuries, the place in district of Adibene, in the district of Adibene. Now it is called modern Iraq. Modern Iraq, Adibene. Adibene and Edessa. Modern Turkey is modern Turkey. The 7th point is the quality of Peshitta differs from book to book. Quality of Peshitta differs from book to book. Book to book, ranging from fairly accurate to pharistic changing. That means each book has its own way of style. Therefore, the quality of the Peshitta differs from book to book. And the next point is the scholars disagree on whether the first Syriac translation was from the Jews or Christian communities. That means the scholars disagree. This first Syriac translation was made by the Jews or Christian communities. They are not clear. Scholars. This Peshitta has fewer variants. Variant means what? We have seen already a group of words which appear in different manuscripts with difference. This Peshitta has fewer variants than the Septuagint. So we have seen it is called Peshitta. Syriac version is called Peshitta. It is a reworking of old Syriac translations, and the word means simple, and it has a close relation with the Hebrew language. And we also said about the standard version for the churches in Syriac tradition. And translation has taken place in 1st and 2nd centuries, and the places are Edessene and Edesse. And quality of the book differs from one book to the other, because it is a paraphrasis. That means some interpretation is given on the text. Therefore, one person gives on one book, therefore the other person gives on other book. There is a difference, book to book. And scholars disagree whether this Syriac translation is from Jews or Christian community. And we conclude this as Peshitta has fewer variants than Septuagint. And now we see about the Aramaic version in the Old Testament. It's time. Time, huh? Already.
47 minutes longer.
Aramaic versions. Targum. Targums. The first point, Targum is the Aramaic version of the Hebrew Bible. Targum is the Aramaic version of the Hebrew Bible. Second point, Targum is singular. Targum is singular. Targumin is plural. Third point, Targum is derived from early Semitic quadrilateral root. Early Semitic quadrilateral. Quadrilateral means is four-sided, many-sided root. Many-sided root. That is Targum. The meaning is translator or interpreter. Translator or interpreter. Or translation or explanation. Translation or explanation. Therefore, Targum is the Aramaic word for translation. Therefore, Targum is the Aramaic word for translation. Aramaic word for translation. The fourth point, after the Babylon, already we have seen this. After the Babylonian exile, the Aramaic became the language of the people, everyday language of the people. Language of people, Jewish people. So, in the post-exilic period, Hebrew was replaced by the Aramaic as the common language. And the fifth point is, Hebrew remained as a language of intellectuals or theologians. Hebrew remained the language of intellectuals and theologians, whereas the Aramaic became the language of the common people, and Hebrew remained as the language of intellectuals and theologians. Hence, to understand the scriptures for the ordinary people, there arose a need for translation. For understanding scriptures for common people, there arose a need for translation into Aramaic. In order to meet the needs of synagogue and Hebrew scriptures, in order to meet the liturgical needs of the synagogue. Therefore, the Hebrew scriptures were translated orally into the Aramaic. They were translated orally into Aramaic. When the scriptures were translated orally, that means the scripture was being read in the synagogue, and a man, a professional interpreter, is called Methurgeman. So, a professional interpreter or Methurgeman interprets the text for the benefit of the congregation. Therefore, since the text was interpreted, the Targums took the character of paraphrase. Targums took character of paraphrase. Paraphrase means explaining something in different way. That means the text is authentic, the text is read, and what is in the text, literally it is not explained, but the message is conveyed in different way. There is a paraphrases. Therefore, Targums took the character of paraphrases since it was being interpreted. A commentary was given. Therefore, the given translations or given commentaries were written gradually. Therefore, the given translations or commentaries were written gradually. And the official recognition of the written Targum belongs to the 5th century. Official written Targum. And as we have said, in the Syriac version Peshitta, it differs from book to book. So too, here, the quality of translation of Aramaic Targums differ from book to book. Why it differs? It is translated not by individual, but different people. Therefore, it differs from book to book. And the last point is the Babylonian Targum is known as Onkelos. Babylonian Targum is called Onkelos, named after a reputed author is the author's name? Is it Targum Onkelos is standard for Pentateuch. Targum Jonathan. Targum Jonathan is for prophets. So you should know, sometimes when you hear Targum, Onkelos and Jonathan, you usually have a knowledge. Okay, this Targum is about Pentateuch and prophets. These are the Aramaic translation. So my dear brothers, we have seen about the Greek translation, Septuagint, and Peshitta, the Syriac translation, and Targum's Aramaic translation of the Hebrew Bible. And with this we conclude the versions of Old Testament, and in the coming class we look into the versions of New Testament. Thank you. So after having seen the Aramaic version, we see the Latin version. Vulgate. The first point is the translation of the Bible into Latin is called Vulgate. The translation of the Bible into Latin is called Vulgate. A number of independent translations. Into Latin were made by Christians in North Africa, Gaul, and parts of Italy. Is it not on? Okay, from beginning again. Okay, so the first point, the translation of the Bible into Latin is called Vulgate. A number of independent translations into Latin were made by the Christians in North Africa, Gaul, and Italy. It is done in 2nd century. These all translations, number of independent translations are done in 2nd century or later. The name Vulgate indicates a text generally accepted as standard. The name Vulgate indicates a text generally accepted as a standard. Why? We can say that it is generally accepted as a text, standard text, because the Latin word vulgatas means common, or commonly. Commonly known. This Vulgate was translated from Hebrew by Jerome in early 5th century. Translated from Hebrew by Jerome in early 5th century. The next point is the word Latin, which was translated from Septuagint, word Latin, translated from Septuagint, is to be clearly distinguished from the later Vulgate, which was translated from Hebrew. The word Latin, which was translated from Septuagint, the Greek version, has to be distinguished from the Vulgate, which was translated from Hebrew by Jerome. From the Vulgate, translated from Hebrew by Jerome. The old Latin is called Vetus Latin. Vetus Latin. The next point, a revision of it by the scholars, A revision of it by scholars at University of Paris was the basis for first printed Bible produced by Gutenberg in 1456. A revision of it by scholars at University of Paris became basis for the printed Bible produced by Gutenberg in 1456, Germany, Gutenberg. So here, one of the points you can add here about Vulgate, the Jerome has translated the Bible from Hebrew, commissioned by Pope Damascus I. Pope Damascus I. So this is the Pope has commissioned Jerome to translate Bible. So one of the points you can add here. So with this we conclude the versions of Old Testament, and now we begin the versions in the New Testament. Versions of New Testament. As a way of introduction, the earliest versions start from 180 CE. The earliest versions of New Testament starts from 180 CE. The second point is, it is true of Latin, Syriac and Coptic versions. That means these versions are starting from 180 CE. Latin, Syriac and Coptic versions. Other versions, the other versions such as Gothic, and the church, World Church of Slavonic, are either from these other versions, Gothic and World Church of Slavonic. These are either from associated with the Christianizing of the nation. That means these versions may be the result of Christianizing the nations, or representing Christianizing, or representing the influence which made on different churches by the communities. Influence of communities. The next point, these versions or these translations usually formed. These translations, that means the translations of the New Testament, usually formed the first literary monument in language. First literary monument in languages. These translations form the first literary monument. So, every language has to develop its alphabet to accommodate. An alphabet had to be developed to accommodate them, these translations. That means every language should have its alphabets. Without alphabets, it cannot be translated. Therefore, every language has to have the alphabet to accommodate them, translations. Sixth. So, the useful versions are, the versions which will be useful are the versions which will be useful are, which are derived from, either which are derived from Greek, or which have base for the revision on the Greek, which are immediately derived from Greek, or which have the base as Greek for the revision. Those versions will be considered as useful sources. Those versions will be considered as useful sources. Why the versions are important for us? Why important for us? Versions are important. Versions are important because they are authoritative in conforming. Because they are authoritative in conforming the identity of regional or provincial text where they are produced. Because they are authoritative in conforming the identity of the regional or provincial text where they are produced. For example, Coptic is of Egypt text. Therefore, these versions are important to know where they are coming from. After having said the introduction to the versions of New Testament, now we see the Latin versions. First, Old Latin. First point, the earliest Latin texts were found in Tertullian's numerous quotations from New Testament. The earliest Latin text were found in Tertullian's numerous quotations from New Testament, probably in 195 CE. So these quotations of Tertullian are not from Syriac, but they are from Greek. So these quotations of Tertullian are not from Syriac, Old Syriac. The Old Syriac is called Itala. Sorry, the Old Latin is called Itala. These quotations are not from the Old Latin manuscripts, such is called Itala, but they are directly from Greek. Therefore, the next point, not until Cyprian there is evidence for the Latin text or such Latin manuscripts. Latin was spoken in the North Italy, Northern Africa, which had ecclesiastical sees, that means authoritative, church authoritatives. The Latin was spoken in North Italy, North Africa, which had ecclesiastical sees. Fourth point, the old Latin manuscripts were represented by the lowercase. Latin old manuscripts were represented by the lowercase letters. And none of them contain the whole New Testament. So none of the old Latin manuscripts contain the whole New Testament. None of them contain New Testament. Therefore, the earliest manuscripts of Latin New Testament are from 9th century. So here, whenever I say Latin or manuscripts and so on, it is of, since we are dealing about New Testament, it is of New Testament. The earliest manuscripts of the Latin of the New Testament are from 4th century. 4th century. These old Latin manuscripts belong to the family of two text type. The old Latin manuscripts belong to two text type. Such as African and European. Because already we have said it is spoken North Italy and Africa. So this is a few points upon Old Latin, the version. And now we see the second, the Vulgate. Vulgate. No power to connect. Okay. 10% means how much time it will come? Already stopped it? Pause? Then you cut it this. Okay, let us see. The Vulgate. The first point is, Vulgate is the name given to the form of Latin text, is the name given to the form of Latin text which was widely circulated in Latin Church. Is a name given to the form of Latin text which was widely circulated in the Latin Church. And this Vulgate, in the beginning, it didn't become popular. It did not become popular because already there existed the old Latin manuscripts. The people were accustomed to use the old Latin manuscripts. Therefore, this Vulgate did not become popular in the beginning. It was not popular. Under the Pope Gregory, in the 7th century, this both Old Latin and Vulgate enjoyed their rights. Old Latin and Vulgate enjoy their rights. The next point, then when the supremacy of this Vulgate has come in, the supremacy of the Vulgate obtained only in the 9th century. Supremacy of Vulgate obtained only in the 9th century. And the supremacy has come in the Council of Trent. And the official decision has come only in the Council of Trent. In the Council of Trent. In 1546, the official supremacy. Then when it appeared as official text, the Vulgate appeared as official text only in the editions of Pope Sixtus, Pope Sixtus V, and Pope Clement. Pope Clement VIII. So, this Vulgate has appeared as authoritative supreme text in the editions of Pope Sixtus and Pope Clement VIII, and this text is called Sixtus Clement text because of both popes. This text is called Sixtus Clement text. The next point, Vulgate enjoyed its rights or recognition until Neo-Vulgate. Until Neo-Vulgate, this Vulgate has enjoyed its recognition, continue to have the recognition. Neo-Vulgate. Next. Neo-Vulgate. New Vulgate. The Neo-Vulgate was undertaken on the initiative of Pope Paul VI. Pope Paul VI. Initiative was undertaken of the Pope Paul VI and promulgated by Pope John Paul II. John Paul II. By Apostolic Constitution on April 25th, 1979. Promulgated by Pope John Paul II by Apostolic Constitution on April 25th, 1979. This new Vulgate is a correction of the Vulgate of Jerome on the basis of Greek text. This new Vulgate is the correction of the Vulgate on the basis of Greek text, because Jerome has used the Koine Greek, not the official Greek, the common language. Therefore, the church wanted to correct it and make it better text. Therefore, the initiative was taken by Pope Paul VI and it was promulgated by Pope John Paul II. And it is the correction of the Vulgate which has the basis Greek, the Koine Greek. So after having said about the Latin versions, first we have seen Old Latin and the Vulgate and the Neo-Vulgate. Now we see the second part of the version in the New Testament, Syriac versions. So, a way of introduction to the Syriac versions. Christianity was introduced in Syria very early. Christianity was introduced in Syria very early. How it is evident? Because St. Ignatius comes from Antioch. St. Ignatius comes from Antioch. Therefore, the Christianity was introduced in Syria very early. And the second point, The language of upper class was Greek, and the masses spoke Syriac. Upper class was Greek, common people spoke Syriac. So, therefore, this call for the translation or this call for Syriac version, this called for Syriac version. So, after having just given a brief introduction to the Syriac versions of the New Testament, now we see about Diatessaron. Diatessaron. The first Diatessaron. Diatessaron. The first point is Tatian. Tatian. C. Tatian is a Syrian from Mesopotamia. Tatian is a Syrian from Mesopotamia who produced a continuous life history of Jesus from 4 Gospels. He produced life history of Jesus. A continuous life history of Jesus from 4 Gospels. And we do not know whether he has taken this basis from Greek or Syria. It is not clear whether he has based on Greek or original Greek or Syriac. But it became popular in the East. What the work that Tatian has done, a continuous life history of Jesus from Gospels, this became popular in the East. Though it was not clear whether it is from originally Greek or from Syriac, but it was popular in the East. Second point. Ephraim, the church father, okay. Ephraim, in the year 310-2. Ephraim, he made use of this Tatian work. He made use of and commented on Diatessaron. His work is called, here you can add one more point, the Tatian work is called Diatessaron. Diatessaron. And Ephraim has made use of it and commented on the Diatessaron. And this Diatessaron became the gospel text for Orthodox churches of Edessa. Gospel text of Orthodox churches, Orthodox churches in Edessa. And the quotations from Diatessaron were found in Syriac virginals, in Ephraim's commentaries. In Ephraim commentary, the quotations from Diatessaron were found in Syria. And the next point, in 1933, the small fragments of Diatessaron were excavated by the archaeologist in the place called Dora Europes. Dora Europus. So in 1933, the fragments of Diatessaron were excavated by the archaeologists in Dora Europus. Is a Roman fortress, okay? Is a Roman fortress. So the next point is Theodoret is a bishop of Cyrus on Euphrates. Theodoret is a bishop of Cyrus on Euphrates in 423. He found that many copies of Diatessaron were used in his diocese. Therefore, when he came to know that the many copies of Diatessaron were used in his diocese, he was unhappy. Because this Tatian, later he became heretic. The bishop Theodoret was unable to accept this text. Therefore, he ordered to collect all the text and burnt it. Hence, today we don't have any copies of this text. Therefore, it is Theodoret who has collected almost totaling 200 copies. He collected it and replaced 4 Gospels in the place of Diatessaron. He has collected all the copies and burnt it and replaced the 4 Gospels in the place of Diatessaron. And this Diatessaron was translated into many languages, including Latin, Persian, Arabic, and so on. This is of Diatessaron, a work of Tatian, which was the life history of Jesus basing on the Gospels, how it was recognized and how it is closed. We have seen. Now we see the Old Syriac. The term Old Syriac is applied to the earliest Syriac translation of New Testament. The term Old Syriac is applied to the earliest Syriac translations of the New Testament. Which was probably around 300 or maybe of earlier. The second point. The Old Syriac includes Acts, letters of Paul, so Paul. This whole Syriac includes Acts and letters of Paul, but no manuscript is found. But no manuscript. Then how can we say that this includes Acts and letters of Paul? These are evident from patristic quotations. The church fathers, when they have quoted, it is evident that these are from Old Syriac. Third point. The textual tradition of Syriac is very complex. Textual tradition is complex. It is so complex, though it has lesser manuscripts, it is so complex. And the church at Syria preserves this with reverence. Church preserves with reverence. So this a small information is enough, because we should know what are the versions. In detailed way, when you go for higher studies, you will know what are the versions and so on. And Peshitta. Peshitta is a term first used by Moses bar Kepha in 903. Peshitta is a term first used by Moses bar Kepha. Already we have seen what it means by Peshitta, okay, earlier. Therefore, I am not repeating what it means, okay. Already we have seen how Peshitta has come. The root word is a common, okay. As the Old Latin developed into Vulgate, the Old Syriac developed into Peshitta. The Peshitta contains 22 New Testament books. 22 New Testament books, and lacks what it lacks. The shorter Catholic letters. Lacks shorter Catholic letters, such as 2nd and 3rd John, 2nd Peter, then Jude, then Revelation. This Peshitta contains 22 New Testament books and lacks shorter Catholic letters, such as 2nd and 3rd John, 2nd Peter, Jude, and Book of Revelation. And there you can add also, as well as the pericope on adulterous woman. It lacks, the Peshitta lacks the pericope on adulterous woman in John chapter 7. The New Testament Peshitta was translated from Greek probably by 5th century. The New Testament Peshitta was translated from Greek. We'll finish. Greek by 5th century AD. There are more than 300 manuscripts of Peshitta. There are more than 300 manuscripts of Peshitta. But only few contain complete of Old Testament. Though there are 300 manuscripts, only few contain complete of New Testament. Again, you can add, the Syriac church still preserves it. Syriac church still preserves it and holds it in reverence today. The text that the Syriac text which existed, Syriac church preserves it and holds it with reverence today.